Frieren has me in a place that I haven't been in coming out of an anime in a really long time. And while there's so many people that have summarized very well why this anime did so great and what made it so special, and yet something so not entertaining, but more so its own thing. There's 5 reasons and key takeaways I have that I'm simply just going to share in a very raw format here of how Frieren managed to somehow top Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood on Mal, at least the time that I'm recording and uploading this, and just the reasons why, to me, that happened. There are 5 things about Frieren Beyond the Journey that really made it something beyond just a great show, but just something that sticks with you. Frieren, the protagonist, is an elf girl that has lived for, I want to say, over 1,000 years. It started to kind of lose track, honestly, but just a being that has lived so much longer than basically everyone else in this world. And that is a concept that we have seen been done. There are plenty of immortal witches, immortal beings that experience the pain of loss that is their lifespan being so grand. But the thing that Frieren Beyond the Boundary does so much, I'm going to say better than those shows, is the change that Frieren kind of becomes from this sort of feeling that it's better to just not get that attached to people. But she's always kind of been this emotionless protagonist since the very beginning. She has this personality that just doesn't seem to be that attached to anything, being emotionally distant from so many things, but she does it in this way that it's not being done on purpose. And that's something that really resonates. It's something that I feel other shows, they try to show this character struggling to being attached to people and having their inner monologues. But Frieren, she just pulls it off in this way that it's natural to her. So when we see in the very first episode her shedding tears over what is another friend that she has lost, or so-called friend, her finally shedding tears kicks off this, one of the later points, this journey of her realizing that time is limited with these people, of not like in a way of just, oh, time is valuable. Of course, that's an obvious lesson, but in a way that she has been such a just in her own place person all these centuries that now she is finally thinking the human experience is so much shorter. And how do I kind of learn about that? How do I handle things differently? It only took this final death to realize that. And Frieren as a character also has this passion for her craft, which is spells and grimoires. And she, as a character, is flawed. She is not perfect. And that just creates this protagonist that is, some would see as boring at times because of how emotionless she seems. But it's also a protagonist that just gives you somebody interesting to follow. But I truly get chills with this next one. Some of my most acclaimed and respected anime original scores come from things like Made in Abyss, maybe One Piece, and so on. But Frieren kind of did something that I haven't heard in a long time, and that is a feeling that every track for every scene is specifically crafted for that moment, for that character, for that story beat. And apparently, I think I heard behind the scenes that Evan Call, the composer for this anime, apparently did that. Like, he legitimately composed so many scenes. A fantastic example, listen to this track. it's just epic. It reminds me of You Say Run from My Hero Academia and how that was an epic track that they used multiple times in the first 2 seasons, the literal same track with certain scenes that made the scene great. But Frieren, instead of reusing this track, Zoltrak, I might be messing up the phrase, they change it up. They use a different battle track, or they use the same track, but it's composed in a much different way with just elements of it. Evan Call literally crafted so many of these scores with such haunting beauty. I think of another one, Where the Blue Moon Weed Grows. This is a song that just instills goosebumps. It feels like this is something from an Academy Award winning thing, but kind of in this way that doesn't feel like it is trying to be that, but rather it belongs to something that we have not seen, or belongs to something that you have seen that just is a staple of it alone. I literally even put this in my Patreon Discord where Alex is like, wow, truly beautiful and touching, and I don't even know the anime. And this all goes with the journey, which is the third thing. See, this plot deals with Frieren essentially in an epilogue, which is the thing that really caught me right away when I started this show. It's an epilogue story. It takes place after the main thing, after the main bad guy has been dealt with. And I am somebody that craves epilogues at the end of stories, but never have seen a story that the journey is after the main conflict. It is after that whole bit. And because of that, every episode just felt like non-urgent. Every other anime I've seen that isn't just a slice of life situation, but something with this scope, with magic, with abilities, with shonen or whatever, they all have some urgency to it, that this bad guy's escaped, that this world is gonna end, that these people are in danger. But this is a journey that is going at the pace of the characters. It's a journey that's going to take a long time, and Frieren understands that, and she has people with her that don't have the unlimited time that she has, so that's an interesting dynamic, by the way, when it's like, hey, you might be able to live hundreds of years, but we do not, so we're not gonna spend like forever at this location, Frieren. But that feeling made this show such a great thing to tune into, because there just wasn't that standard urgency that came with everything. It's a story that you could kind of watch at your own pace and be with these characters as they are on this journey that is going the rate that they are, going the places that they are. And that's just something that sounds boring, that any writer might look at this and go, that's not the traditional story structure, because people are not going to be engaged. There's no reason to keep watching. And in order for people to keep watching, you have to have fantastic characters. And that's what this show is riddled with. Characters and exposition that doesn't just kind of tell you what's going on, but just creates these memorable stories, these great lessons, these flashbacks, these morals that just keeps you watching and wanting to tune into whatever is next for these characters' journey. And because of that, it might seem slow at times. It is slow sometimes. And that kind of leads me to the fourth thing, because, yeah. Studio Madhouse animates this show, so you know if there is action sequences, they're going to be phenomenal, because that's just Madhouse, you know? The thing about the action in this show is, while yes, it's animated fantastically, because it's a slow show, and because it's not really about the action, and because it's more just so about this vibe that everything is, and the characters and the lessons and the writing and the music and everything, just feeling like you're watching these characters be in this world. When the action hits, you care about these characters in these crazy sequences. In fact, my most favorite moment of the show, I would say, is when Fern, a student that is under Frieren, kind of is in her first legit one-on-one fight, and it's with somebody that you are honestly like, can she take this guy? And so seeing this fight actually happen where it's like, whoa, she's actually holding her own with the epic music, with the fantastic animation, as well as another great character, Stark, managing to hold his own. Like, both these two as characters, I thought might be in trouble here, and seeing them have this fight with this great music and animation, because I care about the characters and the setup to this fight, I freaking loved it. That's literally my favorite moment of the show, and it kind of goes on like that. Every action sequence where you get to know these characters and what they're about and what they're not for and so on, it makes those action sequences so much more crazy and just a spectacle to watch that keeps you, the person invested with these characters, at the edge of your seat. And there's also this interesting idea that, you know, Frieren, again, this is a person that did the great journey. She is part of the group of legendary heroes that took down the Demon King. And because of that, you know, imagine it's after a long RPG game and it's somebody that's like after they beat the main boss. You just finished Final Fantasy, Persona, or whatever, and you're that level going about the world. And going about the world over 80 years after that. So it's kind of like you're curious, whenever Frieren gets in a fight, how powerful is she actually? I want to think of a takeaway in this story that has so much about life, time, morals, goals, and so many more deep things. What was the main message I took away? There's so many things I could have taken from, and I do take from Frieren Beyond Journey's End. Himmel the hero is a character that's not even with us technically, but just the memories that Frieren has of this man and the things that he did and his codes and what he believes. There's so many things that I take from him, including maybe to me the most memorable quote, which is like, life is about people remembering you. And one of the best ways to do that is to just help others. I'm getting teared up as I talk about that. Because all we want is to be able to be remembered. And at the end of the day, that's what Frieren does at the beginning of the show. And does throughout the entirety of the show. There's this theme that time is not limitless. As much as it might seem like that for Frieren, there is limited encounters, limited moments, limited chances to experience a specific thing with this one person. There's many people that have talked about Frieren, and you're for some reason watching this video with me, and that's a specific experience you can only have clicking on this video. And that's why, if there's a big thing I kind of loved that Frieren closed with, it's in the last episode, where one of the mages in the biggest arc is saying goodbye to Frieren, and he says words that just struck me. Frieren, 出会いは大切にしろよ。今生の別れってのは何も死別だけじゃない。いや、百も承知か。Death isn't the only goodbye. I heard him say this, and it hit me. You never know what will happen between you and your friends or your family or your colleagues. And just any day, you may never see them again. Not because they died. Maybe there's just something that makes you drift apart. Maybe you're having a maybe you're having your last experience with them on your birthday, that over the next year, you're going to drift apart. You never know what may happen in life that can make this experience something to not take for granted. Death isn't the only goodbye. It's just one of many. I didn't want to say goodbye to this show. I was so in love with it and looked to it as Furin Friday that I just didn't want it to end. And obviously there's more to this journey to do, and if it isn't successful or if the manga's still going, I'm not sure what the details are. I just know I don't want to say goodbye to it. And then one message came up on screen that just made my freaking month. If you haven't watched Furin, you have the chance to watch it and be on this journey with us and just take these morals, watch these great action sequences, feel this music, meet Furin, the emotionless immortal elf, and just take away the many messages that you can from it. But for those of us that have watched it, we'll see them again. And we'll be able to see where this journey takes them next. Do I think Furin deserves to be over Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood? I don't know. But I do think it is one of the most well-crafted and loved anime I have felt from a studio, from a creator, from a writer. They just created something that I'm not gonna forget. So my hat's off to Furin. I want to know what you thought of it. I've been Westside Otaku, and for now I bid you farewell. Unless you watch this Lessons from Anime video.